Hello, dear friends. We are again at Antwerp Cathedral. We are here now in the chapel of Saint Anthony. This chapel has some of the oldest stained glass windows in our cathedral. And we also have a very small organ in our cathedral. It's not yet the smallest, but let's say one of the smaller organs. Here is the organ by Swedish builder Martinsson. It's from the beginning of the 70s. So it's an organ with, let's say, it's a child of its time, like a very neo-Baroque sound. It was originally built as a house organ to have at home, to practice. That's why I think it has the doors, because you can close it, and then your neighbors will be less disturbed when you play at home. It has 5 stops, so very modest. A gedekt, I will show you here, a gedekt, principal, waldfluit, and this is a coupler to the pedals. It has the pedals can be coupled to the manual. It, of course, pedal has no stops. The organ is too small for that. And then we have a 4-foot pommer, a reurpommer, and Nazard. You see 2 stops for the Nazar because it's divided in the bass and discant. It was originally in equal temperament, but I tuned it to meantone temperament, which means it's very suited to play music from the 16th and 17th century, early 17th century music. And I will present today for you a piece by Flemish composer Peeter Cornet. I have here a nice edition of Peeter Cornet's music. I think it's also important to have a good, when you play music, especially old music, to have a good edition. And this edition was prepared by Jean Ferrar and Peter Dirksen. So really specialists of this music, because you get a lot of information. You see some facsimiles of the music, and sometimes the pieces have different kind of editing also. So you can choose which suits you the best, or according also on the organ you will play, because they give some examples of to play a cantus firmus with a pedal, for instance. So it can be very useful. It's important also not only to download your music from EMSLP. Everybody does it, I know, but it's sometimes just nice to have a really proper edition of music. Nice book, very nice edition. I can really recommend it. Now let's start. How do we start? Which I will play the Regina caeli. And how do we start on a very modest instrument? First of all, since the music starts quite low tessitura, I don't know if you can see it, and we have a very modest instrument. Okay, there are 2 possibilities. I think you can start with something which resounds like a plenum, or you can just play it on 8-foot stop and with a principal 4. In this way, the music will sound, because if you only play it like on the gedakt 8-foot, the music, especially when in low register, it not really will sound very well. I mean, I can let you hear a bit. Let's see if I can play this with one hand. Just the beginning with the gedekt. I want the music to speak a bit more, to come out more. So I would play it with, on this organ, with a gedeckt 8 and the principal 4. And then I will play for you the beginning, then it will sound like this. And did you hear this chord? How different it sounds. Very pure, clear. And that is one of the characteristics of this temperament. Some chords sound very pure, others sound unbearable. Like for instance, when I play B major chord, it's not usable so you have to play the music on this kind of temperament, which is meant to be played on this temperament. Otherwise, it will sound just awful. The same thing with a F sharp major chord. So in this temperament, some chords sounds like really great, really very pure, otherwise unbearable. And you hear it, I will play a chromatic scale for you. So the tones are actually unequal, yeah? Yeah, if you would not know, you would say this organ, it's completely out of tune. No, it's meant to be like this, to play the music from 16th, 17th century in this temperament. So you could listen already to the first movement of this Regina caeli. Now let's go to the second movement, Quia quem meruisti. Of course, we know that these pieces were meant to be combined with the Gregorian chants. So they're in the key of the chants, and they use the melody of these Gregorian chants. So normally you would start with the Gregorian, and then the organ plays the next verse of the piece. So now the second piece. The second piece is interesting. It starts more in a higher tessitura, and but also with some like very fast notes in the bass in the left hand. So it's important here to have some clarity about what happens, and also to let hear some of the stops of the organ. I would choose here to play it on the 4-foot flute stop, only the 4-foot flute, so without the 8-foot stop. It's because it's a nice stop and it gives very much clarity to the music. I will let you hear it. Yeah, you see, it's also more like, let's say, playful piece, which suits very well, I think, with this 4-foot stop. Now, next part is something special, because it's a composition which is composed for divided stop, to play on one manual with a discount solo stop. Now, of course, not every organ has discant stops. Usually it's a cornet or a trumpet. Of course, we still have cornets in even modern organs which start from C. But in the Flemish tradition, the discant stop started from C sharp. Now here we have a discant stop, this Nazar, but it starts from B, you see, and then it stops. So, what to do? You want to play this piece, you only have one manual, but you want to have a discant, but a discant which starts from C sharp. So, okay, I have some trick for you, but don't tell it to the organ builders because they will not be very happy with it. This Nazar stop is just in front of me. It's the small pipes here. Yeah, some of you might already guess what I'm going to do. I don't want to have in the discant, of course, this B and C. So, what we can do? We will just put out the pipes. Okay, let's check. Where are they? Have it. I found it. So this is B. I will just put it out a bit. And the next one also, because that is the C. So they don't work. You hear a bit the wind, of course, but now try to avoid just to touch it with your fingers. Use some cloth or use some hand gloves to very carefully put out the pipes. Now we have our discant stop starting from C sharp, just as the music asks. So we will add now the foundation stops, the gedekt, and I will use also the 4-foot flute because the principle will be quite strong and then the discant doesn't come out as good as you would wish. So I use now the 8-foot gedekt, 8-foot flute and discant stop Nazar, and I will play some of the beginning of the piece. So until C there is no discant stop, and the melody, when I start playing the melody, you will hear the discant stop. So in this way, you play on a 1 manual organ, but it sounds like a 2 manual organ. You see, sometimes you have to be flexible with the instrument to make it possible to play certain music. I will put back the organ pipes. And we go to the last movement. The last movement of this Regina caeli is Ora pro nobis. In this case, I would play it on something which refers to a kind of plenum. So we will use the 8-foot stop, the 4-foot principle, and yeah, we have a 2-foot flute, but it doesn't mix very well with the principal stop, so I will avoid it. And I will use the Nazar as a kind of to have a kind of mixture sound. I will let you hear the beginning of the piece. of plenum mixture sound for this piece because it's the final movement of the piece. And these Gregorian chants were used at the end of a Vesper, for instance, during the year. So it meant it was the final song of Vesper, and so this was actually the final piece. So I can imagine, as it still happens here actually on Sunday when we have Vesper, we sing now, since it's time of Easter, we sing Regina caeli at the end of Vesper. And after this Regina caeli, there is some organ piece, you know, to when people start to go home to have dinner. So it shouldn't be something meditative. It can be something with some power. So I guess a plenum is a good choice. Now some other small remarks are about the music, especially this kind of early organ music. The notation is, let's say, not always very exact. You have to be creative, you have to think in the musical lines. One of the things is that they didn't always put the slurs in the music. So sometimes you can see 3 times the same note, bar after bar. Then it's usually meant to keep it as a one very long note, especially on the organ. If you would play it on the harpsichord, of course it's better to repeat it because the sound will diminish too much. But on the organ, you can just keep it, these long notes. And it's also mentioned actually in this edition, okay, what to do to add slurs or not. There's also an alternative setting of the piece with slurs according to the editors. But of course, it's always better to use as much as possible the original notation of the music, and then to decide for yourself, okay, will I keep the note or not? That is something, let's say, up to the good taste of the musician. Well, anyway, this was an introduction in some Flemish music, and I hope to see you soon again. Thank you for watching.